Welcome back to Classic Mosaic Truth. Today we are stepping onto very different terrain.
Literally stepping onto it.
Right. We're leaving the theory behind and we are walking right into the mud. The mountains, the river valleys. We're tackling the 9th chapter of Sun Tzu's The Art of War, which is titled The Army on the March.
It's a really pivotal moment in the text because up until now we've discussed strategy, we've discussed planning and energy, but chapter 9 is where the rubber meets the road, or I guess more accurately, where the boots meet the terrain.
And what terrain it is.
Yeah.
Sun Tzu paints this incredible picture right at the start. He talks about crossing mountains and staying close to the valleys. He talks about camping on high ground facing the sunny side. He describes salt marshes and rivers. It feels very cinematic, like we were watching this massive army navigate a really hostile world.
It is cinematic, but the core theme here is actually about something invisible. It's about information. Because when an army moves, when a massive organization or a complex project or, even a family is quote-unquote on the march, it creates noise.
Yeah.
Movement creates dust. It creates confusion. And when you are the one moving, when you're focused on your own feet, focused on your own survival, it becomes incredibly hard to see what is actually happening around you.
That is the hook for me, because we are all on the march in some way. We are launching projects, we're navigating tricky relationships, we're trying to build careers. And just like that ancient army, we are surrounded by data.
So much data.
Right. We have emails, messages, news reports, rumors, social media opinions. It is just a storm of information.
Exactly. And the danger Sun Tzu highlights, and what modern decision science backs up entirely, is that in all that noise, we lose our ability to see.
We get blind.
We get completely blind. We start guessing. We start projecting our own fears onto the landscape.
So the mission for this session is pretty clear. We want to stop guessing and start seeing. We want to figure out how to separate what is actually happening from what we fear is happening. This is episode 9, Intelligence. But before we get into the weeds...
For the salt marshes.
If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
A small action that helps us keep the march going.
Exactly. Now let's define our terms. Because when we say intelligence in this context, I feel like most people immediately think of James Bond.
Sure. Spies.
Or maybe they think of IQ, academic smarts, book smarts.
And for this discussion, we need to throw both of those definitions completely out the window.
Okay.
When Sun Tzu talks about intelligence, and when we look at the modern science from people like Gary Klein or John Boyd, we aren't talking about being a genius. We are talking about clean inputs. In fact, let's put that on screen as our first text overlay for the video viewers. Intelligence is clean inputs.
Intelligence is clean inputs.
Yeah.
I like that. But I want to push back on this immediately, though.
Go for it.
Are we saying raw intelligence, like IQ, processing power, doesn't matter? Because if I am hiring someone for a really complex job, I want them to be smart. If I have clean inputs, but I'm not smart enough to understand them, surely I'm still stuck, right?
That is a fair point. IQ matters for processing speed, absolutely. But Sun Tzu isn't worried about how fast you think. He is worried about how accurately you see.
Speed versus accuracy.
Right. You can have a supercomputer of a brain, massive IQ. But if you feed it bad data, or if you let fear corrupt the data, that supercomputer will just calculate the wrong answer faster than anyone else.
So the high IQ actually just makes you more efficient at panicking.
Precisely. In fact, really smart people are often better at rationalizing their fears.
Because they can invent better stories.
Exactly. They use their intelligence to build these elaborate, highly logical stories about why the world is ending, rather than just looking at the simple fact that, say, the email hasn't arrived yet. Think of your mind as a processing plant. It can have the best machinery in the world, high IQ, great education. But if you dump garbage into the hopper, you are going to get garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Right. Intelligence, in the strategic sense, is the discipline of ensuring that what enters your mind is true, verified, and completely stripped of emotion.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the garbage in, garbage out principle, but applied to human anxiety.
Yeah.
So if we aren't measuring IQ, what are we actually measuring? What are the pillars of this strategic intelligence?
We can break this down into 4 pillars of plain English intelligence that we found across the source material. The first is exactly what we just said, clean inputs.
Okay.
This means raw data without the emotional wrapper. It is the difference between saying the client hasn't replied to the email in 3 days versus the client is angry and ignoring us.
Oof. That second one stings a bit. I think we've all been there. You send the proposal, silence follows, and suddenly you are convincing yourself They hated it.
That is the human condition. We fill the silence with our worst fears. Now, the second pillar is honest assessment. This is about admitting what is bad and what is good without flinching.
I really liked the source we had on this from Ecclesiastes.
Yes.
And the story about the pianist that illustrates this beautifully. It talks about the white keys and the black keys on a piano.
It's a great analogy.
The white keys are the simple, happy, straightforward notes. But the black keys, the sharps and flats, that is where the tension is. But let me ask you this. In the corporate world, or even in just everyday life, isn't there a huge pressure to only play the white keys?
Toxic positivity.
Right. We call it optimism or a can-do attitude. If I start playing the black keys, if I start talking about problems, don't I just sound like a pessimist who's bringing the room down?
That is the trap. The story goes that a pianist played a simple hymn using only the white keys. It was fine. It was simple. But it was boring. It lacked any real depth. Then she added the black keys. The tension, the sorrow, the complexity, and suddenly it was a lush, beautiful, resonant sound.
It became real music.
Exactly. Honest assessment means you don't just look for the white keys. You don't just look for the good news. You actively accept the black keys, the bad news, the delays, the failures, and you integrate them into your picture of reality. That is true intelligence.
So you aren't just an optimist or a pessimist. You are a realist who sees the whole keyboard.
Perfect way to put it. If you only play white keys, you are fragile. When bad news hits, you shatter because you have no framework for it. You didn't see it coming. If you play both, you are resilient.
Okay, so that's the second pillar. What's the third?
The third pillar is good questions. You cannot get the right answer if you ask the wrong question.
Exactly.
And the fourth pillar is learning fast. This connects to the OD loop, which we are going to unpack later. It is the ability to update your plan the exact moment you realize the terrain has changed.
Okay, let me recap that. Clean inputs, honest assessment, good questions, and learning fast. That sounds great on paper, but why is it so hard in practice? Why do we naturally drift away from this clarity?
Because of the core danger that Chapter 9 warns us about. Obsession.
Obsession, that is a strong word. We usually use that for romance or, I don't know, hobbies. How does it apply to strategy?
Let's throw our second text overlay up for everyone watching. Obsession turns signal into noise. Sun Tzu spends a lot of time in this chapter teaching us how to look at the enemy. He says, look at the birds. If the birds are rising suddenly, it means there is an ambush coming. The birds are being startled by men hiding in the grass.
And if the dust is rising high and sharp?
That means chariots are coming. If the dust is low and wide, it is infantry.
It is so specific. He is looking at the environment and reading it like a book.
He is. But here is the catch. He is seeing what is actually there. Most of us, when we are stressed or obsessed with a goal, we see what we want to be there or what we fear is there. We project our internal state onto the external world.
We have a source here from the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. It talks about this internal noise.
Yes. Epictetus has this brilliant concept of impressions. He says that every time you see or hear something, an impression, it arrives at your front door with two friends. Friend number one is a hasty guess about what the thing is. Friend number two is a hasty guess about how you should feel about it.
That is such a good way to visualize it. Two uninvited friends. So let's play this out in real life. I get an email from my boss at 4 o'clock on a Friday that just says, call me.
Right.
That is the impression.
Right. The raw data is just two words, call me. But immediately your brain invites in the two friends. The hasty guess says, this is bad news. I am in trouble. He found out about the mistake in the report.
Yep.
And the emotional guess says you should feel panic, defensiveness, and maybe a little bit of nausea.
And before I have even dialed the phone, before I've even spoken a word to him, I am in a full fight or flight response. I am sweating. My heart rate is up.
Exactly. And that is what we call dirty input. You are no longer operating on intelligence. You're operating on a hallucination created by your own fear, which leads to our third text overlay. Let's put this up. Fear hijacks honest judgment.
Fear hijacks honest judgment. I love that. And Sun Tzu warns about this explicitly, doesn't he? He says that words often mask intent.
Yes.
If the enemy speaks humbly, sending gifts, talking about peace, but you see them increasing their preparations, they are going to advance.
They are trying to lull you to sleep, but if they speak belligerently, lots of aggressive posturing, shouting, and they drive their chariots out fast, they are likely preparing to retreat. They are creating noise to cover their escape.
So the words, the rumors are the exact opposite of the reality.
Often, yes. And if you are obsessed with fear, you will believe the belligerent words and run away, completely missing the fact that they were actually retreating and you had the advantage.
Or if you are obsessed with hope, You will believe the humble words and get ambushed.
Exactly. Rumor becomes reality because we let our emotions hijack the data. It is a biological reality. When we are afraid, our vision literally narrows. We stop seeing the periphery. We stop seeing the birds rising. We only see the threat we have conjured in our own minds.
So how do we clean this up? How do we become the clear seer in all of this?
We need to adopt what we call the clarity principle, and it starts with separating facts from interpretations. Let's put that up as the fourth overlay. Separate facts from interpretations. We call this the librarian's report.
The librarian's report. I love this concept, but I want to contrast it with what we usually do. Usually we act like the news anchor, right? We want the big headline, crisis at the office.
Right. The news anchor wants engagement. They want drama. Breaking news, the client hates you and your career is over. But the librarian is boring.
Methodical.
Yes, the librarian just catalogs reality.
A librarian doesn't scream, the enemy is attacking, and we are all going to die. A librarian says, dust is rising in the northwest quadrant. It is high and sharp.
Stripping away the adjectives, stripping away the because.
The because is the killer. He didn't call me back because he hates me.
Yes, the fact is, he didn't call you back. Full stop. The rest is a story you are writing. And let's be honest, that story is almost always a horror story.
Always. This reminds me of the source we have on prospective hindsight. This is the pre-mortem concept from Gary Klein. I feel like people mix this up with just standard risk assessment. What is the actual difference between a risk assessment and a pre-mortem?
It is a subtle shift, but a truly critical one. Gary Klein, who developed this, found that when you ask people in a meeting what might go wrong, they enter a creative mode where they try to be polite. They do not want to be the naysayer in the room.
Right. Nobody wants to be the person shooting down the boss's shiny new idea in the planning meeting.
Yeah.
You do not want to be the no guy.
Exactly. You want to be a team player. But when you reframe it to, okay, everyone, it is now 6 months in the future, the project has definitely failed. It is a total unmitigated disaster. Write down the history of that disaster. When you do that, you trigger a completely different part of the brain. You unlock prospective hindsight.
Prospective hindsight. Unpack that for us.
It means you are treating the failure as a certainty, not a possibility. This removes the social pressure to be optimistic. In studies, this method increased the identification of realistic risks by 30% compared to standard risk assessment. You aren't guessing what might happen. You are tracing the breadcrumbs of a catastrophe that, in your mind, has already happened.
Okay, so we are standing in the ashes of the project.
Yeah.
We see the ruin.
And then you ask, what caused this? Let's throw our next text overlay up. Test assumptions with proof.
That forces the brain to stop obsessing over success. It forces you to look at the cracks in the foundation. You start saying things like, oh, well, we failed because we launched in July when everyone in Europe was on holiday. Or we failed because we didn't actually have a budget for marketing and we just hoped it would go viral.
Things you never would have admitted if you were just thinking positive.
Exactly. Sun Tzu says the general who makes many calculations in his temple before the battle will win. The pre-mortem is how you make those calculations. You test your assumptions with proof of failure.
And once you see those cracks, you have to do something about them. You cannot just stare at the failure and nod. You have to update the plan. Which brings us to Colonel John Boyd and the OD loop. Observe, orient, decide, act.
A lot of people have heard of this, especially in military or business circles. But you were saying the orient phase is the most critical. I always thought decide was the big one.
The ODA loop is often taught as a simple, neat little circle. You look, you think, you act. But John Boyd, the fighter pilot who created it, actually drew orient as this massive, messy complex in the middle. It is the heart of the engine. Observe is just taking in data, seeing the birds, seeing the dust. Orient is making sense of it.
It's the black box of the brain.
It is. Boyd said that orientation isn't just looking at a map. It is your genetic heritage, your cultural traditions, your previous experiences, and the new information all colliding at once.
So when I look at a situation, I am not just seeing pure facts. I am seeing them through the lens of my trauma, my education, my fear of failure.
Exactly. And that is why the loop is so incredibly hard. To orient effectively, you have to actively debug that filter in real time. You have to say, am I seeing a threat because there is an actual threat? Or am I seeing a threat because I grew up in a household where loud voices meant danger? If you cannot debug your orientation, you cannot decide correctly. And Boyd said that to orient correctly, you have to be willing to destroy your old mental map.
Deductive destruction. That sounds painful.
It is painful. Imagine you are driving a car using a map of Paris. But suddenly, you look out the window and you see Big Ben.
I'm in London.
You are in London. Now, a person with dirty inputs or a person consumed by obsession will say, no, the map says this should be the Eiffel Tower, so I'm just going to keep driving as if I am in Paris.
That sounds insane when you say it like that, but we do it all the time.
Mm.
My spreadsheet says this product should sell, so I am going to ignore the fact that literally no one is buying it. Or my life plan says I should be married by 30, so I am going to force this relationship to work, even though it is completely broken.
We do it every single day. Orienting means tearing up the Paris map immediately and drawing a London map. Sun Tzu says, to cross mountains, stay close to valleys. He does not say, wish the mountains were flat. He says, adapt to the ground beneath your feet, not the ground you wish was there.
This feels like it requires a massive amount of humility. You have to admit you were wrong. You have to admit you wasted time driving in Paris when you were actually in London.
Which brings us right back to the white keys and black keys. You have to accept the discord to make the music beautiful. You have to accept the bad news to save the campaign.
Now, before we get to the practical filter we promised, we really need to draw a hard line here. We are talking about gathering intelligence, observing people, reading signs. This can sound a little spy versus spy. Are we telling people to become paranoid, Machiavellian operators?
It can definitely sound that way if misapplied, and that is exactly why we need the ethics line.
Situational awareness versus violation.
Correct. When Sun Tzu talks about foreknowledge, he talks about using spies. In the ancient world, during a literal war, that was the only way. But in our modern context, applying this to civilian work in life, we must be incredibly clear. Intelligence is about your observation of public signals. It is not about invading privacy.
So no hacking emails, no stalking people's locations on their phones, no ghosts and spirits, as Sun Tzu would say.
Sun Tzu actually mocks the use of superstition ghosts and spirits to get information. He says you need truth from real people. But in a modern cooperative society, trust is your most valuable asset. If you are seen as someone who snoops, who violates boundaries, you lose the moral law. Remember the first constant factor of war from Chapter 1, the moral law. The people must be in accord with the ruler.
If you're a creepy boss who reads everyone's private messages, you have lost the moral law.
Completely. And your team will actively hide the truth from you. You will go blind. True clarity comes from transparency. Let's put that text overlay up. Clarity comes from transparency. It comes from listening so well and being so trustworthy that people just tell you the truth.
We have a source here on boundary phrases from modern therapists. It suggests that respecting others' limits actually increases the quality of information you receive.
It is counterintuitive, but it is deeply true. When people feel safe, when they know you aren't trying to catch them in a lie, they drop their guard. They show you the white keys and the black keys. They tell you the bad news early when you still have time to fix it. That is the ultimate intelligence advantage.
Okay, let's make this actionable for the listener.
Yeah.
We have got the theory. We know about the birds, the dust, the premortem, and the Yodi loop. But let's say I am stressed right now. I am overwhelmed. I am obsessing over a situation. What do I actually do?
We use the 4-step truth filter. This is a mental checklist you can run through in about 60 seconds when you feel that fog descending.
Step 1.
Step 1, what do I know? This is the librarian's report we talked about. Facts only, absolutely no adjectives. The project is over budget by 10%. Not the project is a disaster, just the number.
Step 2.
Step 2, what do I assume? This is where you list your fears and your hopes. I assume the client is angry. I assume I'm going to get fired. I hope the market recovers quickly. Get them all out on the table. But identify them as assumptions, not facts.
Okay, so now I have a pile of facts and a pile of scary stories. Step 3.
Step 3. What do I need to verify? This is the missing puzzle piece. If you assume the client is angry, what do you need to verify that? You need to talk to the client.
And step 4.
Step 4. What is the next clean step? Not the next emotional reaction. The next clean step based on reality. Usually it is simply asking a question.
No, assume, verify, step. Let's make that a text overlay right now. No, assume, verify, step. It's a rhythm.
It really cuts through the panic.
Let's apply this. We have 3 scenarios to run through: work, relationships, and habits. Let's start with work.
The scenario here is project uncertainty. Let's say you are leading a team and a launch is in 2 weeks. The rumor mill is churning. People are whispering that the engineering team isn't ready. You are starting to lose sleep. You're seeing ghosts.
Let's put this in the real world. I am a project manager. I have a major launch in 2 weeks. My engineering lead, let's call her Sarah, is being really vague. She says, we are close, but she will not give me a hard date. The noise in my head says she is hiding a massive disaster.
Classic scenario. The birds are rising. That is Sarah's vagueness. Your fear says ambush. If you act on that fear, you might storm into her office and demand answers, which immediately puts her on the defensive.
And then she hides the truth even more. She doubles down.
Right, so apply the truth filter. Step 1, what do I know? Sarah has not committed to a date. That is the only fact. Step 2, what do I assume? I assume the code is fundamentally broken. I assume she's lying to me. Step 3, what do I need to verify? I need to see the code actually running.
So how do I get that without being the toxic micromanager? Because if I just ask, is it working? She's just going to say yes.
You change the terrain. You do not ask, are we good? That is a bad question. You use the premortem technique. Or you define done with a tangible proof action. You say, Sarah, for the steering committee update, I need to show a 5-minute raw demo of the login sequence tomorrow. No polish, just pure functionality.
I see. You set a checkpoint in the terrain.
Exactly. If she cannot hit it, you have your answer without ever accusing her of lying. You have converted a rumor into a hard fact, and then you can actually help her fix it.
Okay, let's move to relationships. The conflict story.
Scenario. You think someone is mad at you. Maybe a spouse, maybe a close colleague. Their tone was short. They didn't use an emoji in the text message.
The horror. No emoji. But seriously, this ruins days for people. I have lost entire afternoons analyzing the grammar and punctuation of a text message.
We laugh, but this is fear hijacking judgment in real time. You interpret silence as anger. You interpret brevity as dismissal.
So running the truth filter, I know they sent a short text. I assume they hate me. I need to verify their emotional state.
The application here comes from our source on nonviolent communication. Stop mind reading. You are not a telepath. And stop attacking with your own anxiety.
So what's a clean step? Do I just text back and ask, are you mad at me?
You could, but that puts them on the spot. Better to state your observation and your feeling. Hey, I noticed the text was short, and I am making up a story in my head that you were upset. Just checking in. Is everything okay?
That owns the story. It says, I am making up a story rather than you were being mean to me.
Exactly. It lowers all the defenses. And remember the proverb from our sources. A gentle answer turns away wrath. If they are stressed, do not meet them with your defensive anxiety. Meet them with gentleness. It diffuses the belligerent advance.
Choose a calm time to speak. Do not launch the attack when you are angry.
Never. Sun Tzu is very clear about this. A general who fights out of anger will be defeated. Anger is an intoxication. It makes you completely blind.
Example 3. Habits. The drifting routine.
This is a totally different kind of war. The war against internal entropy. You have a routine, say, exercising or studying, and it is just falling apart.
The fog here is self-judgment, isn't it?
Yeah.
I am lazy. I have no willpower. I am just not the kind of person who goes to the gym.
That is a dirty input. That is an assumption, not a fact. The fact is simply, you didn't work out.
So how do we fix this with intelligence?
Look at your environment. Sun Tzu says to cross mountains, stay close to valleys. He means use the terrain to help you. If you want to read more, do not rely on raw willpower. Put the book on your pillow.
Make the terrain force the behavior.
Exactly. This is from James Clear's work on atomic habits. Remove friction. If you are struggling to exercise, is your gym gear hidden in a dark closet? That is difficult ground. Move it to facile ground. Put your shoes right by the door.
Adjust the environment to support the baseline. Stop blaming your character for what is essentially a logistics problem.
That is the essence of it. Intelligence is seeing the logistics clearly, not beating yourself up with emotional stories. If you track your triggers, oh, I skip the gym when I sit on the couch first, then you can change the plan. Do not sit on the couch.
This brings us to our guided exercise. We call this the clarity loop. I want everyone listening to take a second, pause the audio if you need to. Think of one area in your life where you feel confusion right now, where you feel that obsession creeping in.
Just one area. Do not try to solve your whole life today. Maybe it is a financial decision, maybe it is a relationship, maybe it is a career move.
Okay, step 1, name the objective.
State the goal in one single sentence. I want to launch this project on time, or I want a peaceful relationship with my brother.
Step 2, list the facts.
What do you truly know? These are the white keys. We are 5 days behind schedule. We haven't spoken in a month. No emotions, just facts.
Step 3, list the assumptions.
This is where you dump the bucket. What stories have you added? These are the black keys, the sharps and flats of emotion. He doesn't respect me. I am an imposter. This is going to be a disaster. Write them down so you can physically see them. Get them out of your head and onto the paper.
Step 4, identify verification.
Look at those assumptions. What is the one thing, the single thing you need to verify to know if they are actually true? Do you need to check the bank account? Do you need to ask the question?
Step 5. Choose one question.
What question will you ask and who will you ask to get that information? And here's the key. You must ask it calmly. You are a librarian asking for a book, not a soldier asking for mercy. And let's put another text overlay up for this. Ask better questions today.
Step 6. Choose one proof action.
What small thing will you do today to test reality? Not tomorrow, today. Will you send the email? Will you check the account? Will you put the running shoes by the door?
And finally, closing the loop. Let's make this our next text overlay. Release obsession. Return to reality.
A calm release of the obsession. You have looked at the dust. You have counted the birds. You have a plan. You do not need to carry the fear anymore. Return to the ground. Return to reality.
It feels like a massive weight lifting off, doesn't it? Just knowing that you do not have to carry the story, you just have to manage the facts.
That is the absolute freedom of discipline.
But even with this tool, we mess up. Let's talk about the common mistakes people make. I know we have 5 of them lined up.
Mistake 1. Confusing busy with informed.
Oh, this is the classic modern trap. I read 40 articles about the topic today, so I am incredibly smart.
But if they were 40 articles of gossip or speculation, you just collected noise. Nate Silver, who wrote about the signal and the noise, talks about this. You have to focus on the signal. Sometimes reading less but reading better sources is the actual answer.
Mistake 2. Believing the first impression.
Remember Epictetus. The impression comes with a hasty guess. The mistake is opening the door and letting that guess move in and completely redecorate your house.
The fix for that.
Wait. The Tao Te Ching says wait until the mud settles and the water is clear. Give it an hour. Give it a day. The birds might just be passing through. It might not be an ambush at all.
Mistake 3. Ignoring the bad news.
This is playing only the white keys. Ignoring the bad news does not make it go away. It just means you will be completely unprepared when the music stops.
The fix is realizing that bad news is good intelligence that allows you to adjust.
What's mistake 4?
Relying on hope.
I hope it works out.
Hope is a virtue, absolutely, but it is not a strategy. Preparation is a strategy. If your entire plan relies on hoping the enemy doesn't attack, you have already lost the war.
And mistake 5, making decisions when angry or fearful.
We touched on this. Sun Tzu says, no ruler should put troops into the field merely to gratify his own spleen.
Spleen, I love that translation.
It means his own anger. The fix is simple. Halt. Never launch an attack or an email in anger. Draft it. Sleep on it. Send it when the mud has settled. This has been incredibly clarifying. I feel like my own mental windshield has been wiped completely clean. Let's recap the big takeaways before we wrap up the session.
Let's hit them.
First, intelligence is clean input, not just being smart.
Second, obsession turns useful data into noise. Stay calm.
Third, separate what you see from what you feel. The librarian's report.
Fourth, use the pre-mortem to test your plans against failure before you ever start.
Fifth, maintain ethical boundaries. Clarity requires trust.
Sixth, run the truth filter. Know, assume, verify, step.
And finally, let's throw our last text overlay up for this one. Update plans when reality changes. Be willing to be wrong so you can be right.
That is the true path of the clear seer.
We have covered the terrain. We have crossed the marshes. Now we have to actually lead the army. Next time, in episode 10, we are talking about leadership, order, morale, and calm command.
We are going to take this clear vision we just built and learn how to use it to guide others, how to keep the spirit of the army intact when things get really hard.
You will not want to miss that. It is the capstone of everything we have talked about.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Pass, pass, pass.